Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back as we review Kaiju number 8. Alright, so what's going on in chapter 20? Well, this should go without saying, but chapter 20 picks up where we left off with chapter 19. Now, I get it, I do. But it was important to say that because Matsumoto had left us off on this massive cliffhanger. If you remember, the vice captain had just been granted authority to basically go all out with his fight against Kaiju number 8. And so at the end of chapter 19, it's revealed that his all out is actually 92%, which is putting Kafka in this massive bind. So within the first 4 pages of chapter 20, you have what is like this mini standoff with Kafka having this internal dialogue with himself regarding how he doesn't want to go all out against the vice captain because obviously he knows how insanely strong he is, but just as you keep reading, you start to get this revelation that Kafka, you really should be worrying about yourself right now because the vice captain's perfectly fine. You are worrying about the wrong person because for the rest of this chapter, the vice captain is tagging Kafka left and right in this fight, okay? Hoshina's nice with the swords, okay? The vice captain is extremely nice with the swords. Back when he had made that statement how he specializes in miniature kaiju, we had no idea what that entailed. Apparently there must just be a plethora of humanoid kaiju or something along the lines of humanoid kaiju that would make the vice captain's position viable because they're not surprised that Kafka is a human. Well, scratch that. They're not surprised at the appearance of a humanoid kaiju, which there have had to have been humanoid kaiju in the past or something of a bipedal nature to where the vice captain is not surprised. We get this description on page 5 about the Defense Force suits and how they're made of kaiju muscle fibers and cells, and it states that the higher your unleashed combat power, the stronger the link that the user forms between them and the muscle fibers and cells. Now, as soon as I had read this, I was like, so maybe that's why Kafka can't generate a link between him and his suit because he already has a link between the kaiju that he swallowed back in chapter 1, which is like running interference for, I guess, the natural muscle integration between him and the suit. Now, obviously, he can use 1%, but realistically, the way they made it out to seem is that even the worst person in the Defense Force should be able to generate at least 1%, and it has taken him 1 month to get 1% of the Defense Force suit. Needless to say, after this revelation we had on page 5, the next 3 pages are Kafka getting, again, worked. Kafka's getting smacked around this entire chapter. He mentioned that the vice captain's movements are inhuman as he springs around throughout the alleys, much like how we see Deku or Gran Torino from My Hero Academia would do. He's just bouncing off the walls and using this superior agility to catch Kafka off guard. You get a good picture of this on page 8. The vice captain manages to catch him lacking and lobs off one of his hands, and when this happens, I'm like, Kafka, you're gonna have to pull your shit together, like, for real. You're losing arms now, my guy. Like, I thought this was gonna be easy work for him considering what we've seen him do, but then it hit me, no, he's really not trying to, he's not trying to do damage to this man, okay? But it's gonna come at the cost of his life if he keeps this up, so he needs to make quick decisions. In the panel, Kafka had managed to dodge the attack that was thrown at him, right? But the vice captain manages to lob off one of the arms of Kafka without a second thought, and it just keeps going all downhill after that. Within seconds, the vice captain has managed to locate Kafka's core and managed to take out not only one of his arms, but also a leg too, using his Slayer technique number 5, the double strike. Again, the only thing that's keeping this man from wobbling over is the fact that he displays this regeneration ability that allows him to regenerate what seems to be an infinite number of times, but at the cost of his stamina. Now, we see this on page 9, so I can only assume that it'll come to a point where Kafka cannot physically regenerate a lost limb, so he really does need to be careful while he's entertaining this fight with the vice captain right now. But I think it's clear from this chapter that the difference between Kafka's raw power and the skill of the vice captain is made perfectly clear. If he isn't careful, this could really spell out disaster for him in the future whenever he fights these high-ranking members of the Defense Force. Remember, this is only one division. There are multiple divisions of the Defense Force, so who knows who he could run into in the future. But So picking back up on page 11, we get this new information on specifically Kaiju number 8 and how he might actually have this fortitude higher than an 8.0. The reason the vice captain thinks this is because in his words on page 11, he is, quote, going at him pretty damn hard. That means that he is still holding back to a degree. That's what I'm getting from this, okay? I'm going to assume he's not at 100%. He's currently at 92%. Obviously, he's not at 100%. I mean 100% of his max. So if his max is like 96%, he's only at 92 right now. So he has potential to go higher. He then goes on to say, quote, he's dodging the blades and changing the course of their precision. And then he goes on to say he has a fortitude higher than an 8, and any kaiju higher than an 8 is apparently considered a daikaiju. But we kind of already knew that from chapter 10 when he had mentioned that something with the fortitude of a 9.8 was there at the Defense Force exam back when the humanoid kaiju reanimated the dead kaiju and he was initially introduced. Unless the vice captain wasn't referring to Kafka back in chapter 10, but that kind of wouldn't make any sense. I'm going to assume that when Kafka goes all out, he ranks a 9.8 on the fortitude scale. And that means that this man is just chilling basically right now as he's fighting the vice captain at an 8 flat. But flash forward to page 12. My thoughts are instantly diminished because this man declares that he's about to kick it into high gear. Like I said, I don't believe that 92 is his end percentage. I just think that's where he chose to start for this fight. And page 12 basically declares that. Going back to what I said earlier in the summary about Kafka losing a leg, this on page 12 was what I was referring to. The vice captain uses his sword slay technique number 5, right? The double strike. In reality is just like a diversion for a hidden third strike, which is known as the Mist Slayer triple strike. All right. Now this hit from the vice captain did manage to connect with Kafka, but his Musin side mouth shits managed to catch it just as it was about to like take out his core. He manages to swat the vice captain's swords away from his hands, disorients him, and then by the time he turns around, Kafka is gone, and he reports into Mina that Kaiju number 8 has escaped, and that's the chapter. This is what I find odd or need answered in the upcoming chapter. From what we see on page 19, I'm hesitant to bring it up because I don't want to sound like this conspiracy guy, but if you remember back in chapter 9, pages 6 through 11, you have those panels where Kafka and Ichikawa are talking about Shinomaya and how she is healing and how he was thanking Ichikawa for giving him the push to go through with the exam. And then on page 9, you see Captain Ashiro standing outside of the door listening in on their conversation before going in to thank them for their efforts. I can't help but wonder how long she had been initially standing there, and does she also suspect something is up regarding those two and how the events that happened during the second stage of the Defense Force exam. From what we found out in the following chapter, that Kafka does pass the exam, but only because the vice captain accepted him into his platoon personally. Now, that's mainly to keep an eye on him because on page 18 of chapter 10, they only lost signs of one person's vital. If Vice Captain Hoshina has the information and can find out and suspect Kafka, then Captain Mina can do the exact same thing and probably faster and come to the same theory. So, tying all this back in to chapter 20, on page 19, when the vice captain tells Captain Mina that Kaiju number 8 got away and you see her reaction, I can't help but feel it's more of a relief than a surprise, but that could just be me going crazy and thinking way too deep into this with headcanon. But that is all I have for y'all today. If you made it to the end, thank you. If you are new, Gold Plus Ultra, smash that subscribe button. Lets me know you rock with the content that I put out on this channel. Like the video, share the video, comment on the video, all that fancy stuff. And like always, until next time, I'm out.
Taking the lead. Losing B. Securing C. Cruise missile inbound. We lost Alpha.
Your sentry turret has been destroyed.
Established Angels 3.
SAM turret attacking your spy plane.
Spy plane fuel check, 50%. Enemy spy plane inbound.
Your spy plane has been destroyed.
Enemy sentry turret detected in your AO. It's as good as ours, but tightened by the numbers. Losing Bravo. Enemy napalm strike incoming. Enemy sentry turret detected in your AO. We lost Bravo. Artillery targeting detected. Net call, incoming artillery. Enemy spy plane inbound.
Two hostiles removed. Good hit, good hit.
Loyalty to the party, loyalty to the motherland. Victory.
Hoorah! That's the win.